Archaeodeath with Professor Howard Williams, bringing the past to life, just in time for its own funeral.
So welcome to the Archaeodeath 42,000 followers Q&A live. And first of all, I wanted to say thank you to the 42,000 people, whoever they are, wherever they are in time and space, because you never know really whether they're even in existence in our universe. They could be in alternate dimensions. I mean, this is the way I like to look at TikTok. It's who knows what's happening and how many of the people actually exist, where they exist and how they exist. But whoever you are, thank you for following me for whatever reasons, whether it's because I called out a few by strange people, or you like my content of places I go or sites I see, or issues I raise about the archaeology of the early Middle Ages, the Viking Age, Anglo-Saxon period, or whether it's about the mortuary archaeology. There's so many different things going on. So just to reiterate, for those that have joined in, I'm going to go do a blurb, then I'm going to come to questions that have been left in the chat, and thirdly, if any archaeologists want to hop on live, we'll have a chat about anything that we think is important and ongoing. So the first thing I want to say is thank you very much for the, I've lost track, only 42,000 plus live followers I've got. I'm very appreciative of that. I'm also wanted to say that I'm a professor of archaeology at the University of Chester in the UK, in England, a small part of the UK. And I try to address archaeology in the UK more broadly. I try to address funerary archaeology, mortuary archaeology. There's a whole host of different things I do on my TikTok. But of course, the first thing I wanted to raise beyond that, the next thing I wanted to raise beyond that is, of course, like colleagues across the UK in the higher education sector, we're going on strike, and it's really daunting. I've never been on 18 days of strike action through February and March, which is going to affect us. It's going to affect our students. The last thing we wanted to do was to go on strike. But here we are again, because employers are refusing to negotiate over basic reasonable requests to have pay at least in line with a massive rise in cost of living. Now, we're not the only sectors affected, of course. We're seeing teachers, we're seeing a host of other public services are going on strike on the 1st of February. So basically it's going to be almost a national, it's closest we've had to a general strike in a while in the UK, because lots of people are going on strike on the 1st of February. And then we've got 17 further days we're going on strike through February and March. It's affecting us, it's going to affect our students, and employers are saying, oh, it's all our fault. Well, it's not our fault. It's their fault. They even insulted our negotiators by saying that our request for a reasonable pay rise and discussions of working conditions was an April Fool's joke. So there's a degree of contempt which is difficult to take, really, when you're seeing this kind of mocking of public service workers when the government spaffs away money on everything, including the gross wastage of money and giving contracts to their own pals during the COVID pandemic, through to the Liz Truss micro management and vast macro mismanagement of the economy, but very small tenure as Prime Minister, and the gross negligence that's never going to be followed up. All we're doing is asking for a pay rise that means that we can actually afford to heat our homes and to feed our families. So this is rather poor. So that's why we're going on strike. And but of course, it's a part of a broader issue, archaeology in the UK more broadly. We're, UK society, food and fuel, and personal circumstances aside, which I don't talk about much on. It's while I'm perhaps a more senior colleague and pay is slightly better, I've got slightly worse circumstances to deal with than many academics in terms of dependence and circumstances. So it's a very frustrating time. What am I doing on this channel? What am I doing with TikTok? Well, I suppose I'm using the channel to talk mainly about not social issues or industrial action, but about archaeological research. I try not to do news, but I occasionally do dabble in new discovery, but I try to leave that to other people who do the news reporting. I try to only occasionally, get into controversies, but controversy finds me because of my areas of expertise. I'm not looking to call out people on various issues, but it sometimes happens, or I try to join in with a bit of collegiality and solidarity with other archaeologists who are calling out various grotesque things going on social media with real world ramifications. So I do occasionally do that, but obviously I'm also churning out sites I visit, place issues I'm interested in. So, for example, in recent months I have been doing some call outs. I did the call out of Museum of Tarot and his dreaming of Yahtzee ghosts or whatever he was doing in Germany, visiting sites of far right pilgrimage and spiritual lunacy and jumping into tombs. So I called out that. Yes, I had a little conversation with another person who's blocked me because Museum of Tarot has, of course, blocked me. Berserker Bear with his face paint mocking of indigenous people and calling them vain for daring to suggest there's a problem with people appropriating their facial tattooing and facial paint, doing whether it's cosplay or reenactment or Norse pagan beliefs. There's no need for that, and he didn't understand that. And of course, we've had the Jake the Looter from North Carolina issue, where I've been joining my US and other colleagues in trying to create some noise over this grotesque looting of sites. And yes, people have been getting in touch and making a big, he's not illegal, it's on private land, says he. And even if it is on private land, it's grossly unethical. So that was the reason we were calling out that. But I've been sharing information about other early medieval topics, head stakes, early Anglo-Saxon cemeteries, execution cemeteries, where they cut people's heads and put them on stakes. I've been dealing with terminology. People love a terminology debate, don't they? Whether the British Isles is totally offensive to every person that's ever existed in Ireland, or it's just a neutral term, and what the various other comedic and quite useful alternatives there are. Terms like BCE, CE, AD, BC. People are not sure about this stuff. They seem to like those kind of videos. And of course, videos about my research on linear earthworks, early medieval cemeteries, my production of Office Light Journal 4, which is the journal I edit, and other random themes, such as a massively viral video about a solar power plant that I saw while I was passing by it on a bus. Star Car. It's not actually Star Car, but the site in the Star Car area that my colleagues Amy Gray-Jones and Barry Taylor, together with colleagues at Manchester University, Nick Overton, have been excavating, and that went pretty big. As well as I've been visiting a few sites like Minor Quiven, Castethnius Bran, sharing some of the sites I mooch off to when I have a spare few hours. And of course, I've been doing my series. I've done a student gave me a modern popular translation of the Havamal. It's not an academic translation, but I thought I'd use that as an inspiration to do a sort of some semi-humorous, semi-reflections on the Havamal from an academic archaeology perspective. And I've been doing for the Troth, a heathen group, I've been doing a series of videos called Screams Norse Pagan, which is a wonderful idea to do a sort of here's an object that screams Norse pagan, and of course I'll be introducing objects that scream or have been said to scream Norse pagan, but there's a lot of ambiguity about their interpretation. But I thought that's a lovely way in to capture people's attention. I've been doing Doctor Who lives with the Rebel Rabbi, who's here. Yes. So the fantastic Rebel Rabbi, please follow the Rebel Rabbi if you don't already. She is the fantastic content, ethical, inspiring, insightful, and of course touches on issues that link to archaeology and indigeneity, faith. Yes, lots of interesting things. So we've been doing Doctor Who lives, and they're going on my YouTube. I've been doing these live Q&As. Last one was at 36k, now I'm at 42. And I'm really interested in suggestions of what else I do in terms of both lives and videos. So I have got questions coming up. I can tell you what I've got. I've got a series I'm going to do on the archaeology of Middle-earth, going through The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. There's recent news stories about decapitation in Roman Britain, and I want to pick up on that and do some videos about the interpretation of headless bodies, or bodies with heads by feet or between the legs, found in later Romano-British context, because there's, over the last couple of years, this is a headline grabber. Everyone likes a body without a head, and ooh, look, decapitation, what could it mean? So I'm going to do videos about that. I'm going to do a video, this will interest a lot of those Norsey types out there. I've got a video about the latest research on Valkyrie pendants from southern Scandinavia. These small little figurines that with gender ambiguous representations, or male associated elements of their dress and female associated elements of their dress. And there's a brand new research come out about that. So I'm going to do a latest research and what do I think about that. And I've got some questions lined up to answer, because people have asked me about runes, given the news of the oldest runestone found so far, runic inscription found so far, dating to the early Roman Iron Age from Scandinavia. I've got people have asked me about sci-fi archaeology, futuristic archaeologies, and I want to answer a question about that. People have been asking me about creative archaeologies. How do we create drama, narrative, work with the arts more in archaeology? And I can't see my notes here. What the heck is that about? I can't even read my own. Something else that people ask me. I've got a whole series of other videos lined up in response to questions that come in. So I'm doing the sort of responsive stuff. I'm also doing the, thick new research that's come out, and here's my take on it. And I'm just randomly doing the fun things that I want to do on TikTok. So that's my kind of that's the kind of thing I'm up to. Yes, I am the Bone Daddy. Yes, yes, that's a new revelation. Apparently, I am. Me and Archaeowolf are both apparently Bone Daddies, according to somebody on social media. So I think that's a new title that we should somehow own and embrace. As I don't know what that means, sort of senior archaeo type people for the TikTok community, at least senior in knowledge, not years, of course, because we're all in our 20s still. At least I am. That's always good to know. So that's my kind of blurb. Thank you for the 42,000 followers, whoever you are. Thank you for tuning into the eclectic content. I've tried not to be too formula. I've tried not to do breaking news. There's some other great curators who I know some of them are here who are doing that breaking news stuff, and I don't want to compete with them. They do it much better than I do. But I have some sort of fun themes I'm going to be doing, series and lives. And our next Doctor Who live is going to be Rebel Rabbi and I are going to be doing the specials from season 7, and then we're going to move on to the season 8, Peter Capaldi seasons of Doctor Who. So watch out for that. So that really, that's just much quicker than I thought. That actually wraps up all the things I wanted to say by way of introduction. Is, just I'm going to continue doing stuff on here. I was going to tell you something about what I've been. Oh yeah, research-wise, yeah, there is big news. I've just done a video about it. I'm going to release that because someone asked me, "Oh, you've got a new book coming out?" And so yes, I do have a new book coming out. It's not going to be out probably this time next year. But the news is I've secured a publisher for it. So this is the co-edited book I'm doing with Leiden University Dutch doctoral researcher Femke Lippok, who is a fantastic young career archaeologist, and she is been collaborating with me over the last 2 and a bit years doing an edited book on a theme that's never been addressed before, but links to both our research, which is cremation in the early Middle Ages. So looking at, and we're doing this book in a different way, rather than commissioning chapters from specialists in different regions with different theoretical and methodological takes. We're actually doing the book by structured interview. So we've been interviewing people via Zoom or Teams, and then capturing it, translating it, adding references and images. So we've got to do this, and we've just secured a publication deal with Dutch-based publisher Sidestone Press, and we've got money to make it open access. So it'll be another book where I've been able to not put it behind a paywall or be only available for people who can afford $150 or £110 or whatever for an expensive hardback. But this will be free to download, or at least free to view online. I think they've got a Sidestone have an online viewing system rather than a PDF download, so you can actually do that. So that's going to be good. So I'm really pleased. I'm pretty proud of this project because it's going to be original. The theme's original. The way we're pulling the book together is going to be original. Femke's a new kid on the block type thing, so it's going to be a collaboration with a younger scholar. That's going to be positive. And it has been a really good, fun process, and we've been able to do it by interviews. So we've got 15 interviews so far. I think we've got a 16th lined up, and then I'm dropping in a few chapters of my own, and we're going to do an introduction on cremation, burning the dead. And surprise, surprise, the archaeological evidence for cremation is showing us that it wasn't just a pagan rite that died out when Christianity came along. It's actually, we see the archaeological record is showing us a really amazing complexity of ways in which people are disposing of the dead in the early Middle Ages, from the 5th to the 11th century CE. So, and not always following what the church or a uniform pre-Christian way of doing things. So there's a lot of variation going on. In the way that dead are being disposed of. So I shall keep you updated about my cremation, my burning issues, all the puns. I still aspire in my career to write more pun academic paper titles. I've done a paper about cremation, modern day cremation and scattering of ashes at animal sanctuaries, particularly a donkey sanctuary, and I called the paper Ashes to Asses, and I got away with that in the journal Material Culture. So I feel like I got away with that. that no one sees. It's almost abuse of the academic system to create really bad puns into paper titles or header titles. But they let me get away with that one, so I think really no one's going to call me out on it, and I'm going to get away with more. So I might try and get a few more pun titles into my future. I did Death Warmed Up as a paper title as well, and I've also done Potted Histories, ceramic urns, cremated. Yeah, I shouldn't be in this job because they shouldn't allow bad pun people to pun archaeology to flourish. It should be ruled out, should be banned. It's probably offending someone somewhere, and therefore I should stop it immediately. So that's my rambling introduction. So I'll tell you more about my ongoing research in due course. But let me go to the questions and see if TikTok's going to mess around with me, or is it actually going to allow me to scroll and see what people have been leaving me questions. See if there's any questions here. There's lots of comments, people joining. What are your pronouns? Is that aimed at me? I don't know if I don't do pronouns. I've never heard of a pronoun. Death and dead, I think. No. He and him and that type of thing, really, mostly. But, I don't really care. Call me what you want. Professor, is that a pronoun? No, it's not. Professor. Hello. Oh, it's my the person who lives in the Western Isles rather than to Catherine. Yes, hello, Catherine. Yes, you were the person who was commenting about living in the Western Isles, and someone suggesting the whole of these islands should be called the Western Isles. So, that was funny. Yes, hello. How's David? Yes, hello. Lots of people saying yes, Bone Daddy. Oh, yes, and Bone Daddy's already had a reference. Is it like that in Australia too? I don't know. That's comments about me. That's not a question for me. Catherine wants more controversy. Archaeodrama. Okay, well, I'll try my best. I'll try and weave in a little bit more archaeodrama. But, so, I've been basically deleting, as I've said in my video where I talk about how I deal with my comments, I've been deleting a lot of the real hate farmers and the real idiots on here and the clearly extreme viewed people, because I just can't be asked to give them a platform by commenting. And so I have just deleted a lot of people. And if that's accidentally deleted people that had sincere points to make, I do apologise, but it's just easier. So I have been doing a lot of deleting of comments and blocking of people just because they sound funny or they don't. And anyone with, say, certain numerical combinations in their, their no videos, no profile, no avatar, and certain dodgy collections of numbers, I kind of just block. But and they always I asked one this evening, I said, oh, isn't it interesting that you've got those two numbers in your profile? Oh, that's for personal reasons. That's nothing to do with the issue. Sure it is, right, block. But I will occasionally do little jokey replies and try and fight some misinformation. But as I say, a lot of the fighting of misinformation doesn't go anywhere fast. Some of it works really well. And Archaeowolf here, he's got a great formula of doing it. I feel when I do it, I just end up wanting to just go, yeah! And so I try to not do that. But I'll try and do a bit more controversy. But I apologise about saying about fat shoulders. Yes, it was clearly the worst thing I could possibly say about anyone is talking about that. And obviously his shoulders aren't fat, which is why it wasn't something that was clearly body shaming. But people are saying I was body shaming. So, okay, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said fat shoulders. But it was making the point that they wouldn't have been fat if they hadn't tried to cram them into an anthropomorphic medieval sarcophagus. Then, anyway, but that's, it's amazing what people can miss the point and still get outraged about. But yeah, I do apologise for that poor turn of phrase. Good to see you all. Let me see if there's anybody else. Good evening from Norway. Oh yes, Margit. Yeah, you've been doing some great folklore comments on my videos. Thank you very much. I'm looking for questions, but I'm still way behind. Someone loves the Doctor Who lives. Thank you. I'm glad you like the lives. They're all on YouTube now. Screams, Norse Pagan. Yes, they're going well. Are you finding anything? Are there any findings from underwater shipwrecks or wrecks? Do you know what, Mermaid JC? And hello, Mermaid JC. And we've done a wonderful conversations before. I don't keep up on underwater archaeology, and it's a shameful limitation of my abilities, as I don't do a lot of underwater archaeology news. I'm sure people are finding really cool stuff, but I don't keep up on it. The archaeology of Tudor England is a question, but I don't know how it links into a specific question. Yes, there is archaeology of Tudor England. We have lots of archaeology of the 15th and 16th century. Remember, archaeology comes right the way up into the modern era, right up to the 20th century. I was visiting an archaeological site in Israel recently. I've just done a video about it today, where the phases of the archaeological excavation of the archaeological site, which have been heavily damaged because of its later use, date from the what we would call the Roman period, early Byzantine period, early Islamic period, and then it was the site of a massive 20,000 soldier garrison of the Ottoman Empire while they were fighting the British in Egypt in the First World War. And Israel doesn't officially recognise the First World War as archaeology. And one of the archaeologists who's doing work there is interested in the early Byzantine churches there. But the other archaeologist is interested in the First World War conflict archaeology. So archaeology goes through all periods and all places. And when I was in Israel for the first time, I had to laugh because they had a period, one site I was at where they had the Nabatean, whatever, first temple, second temple, Nabatean, Roman phases, and then Islamic phases. And then we got up to the 20th century and it was the British period. And I thought, yay, imperial archaeology. I didn't go yay, but I mean, I just found it really amusing that, the British period was a thing. Of course it is a thing, but I just found it really sort of funny to see it so starkly represented that way. Yes, there's lots of interesting archaeology, battlefield archaeology from the War of the Roses and after that, yes. Yes, gender ambiguous issues always upset the Brossart truths. There's always a very small sort of gendered, very old-fashioned reaction to anything about gender ambiguity. But actually, Viking archaeology has been discussing queer archaeology for about 35 years, so it's not exactly a new phenomenon. But it's a hot topic and it gets a lot of attention. Sometimes for good reason, sometimes for attracting the sort of idiots. Have you done a video debunking the viral stuff suggesting the Eye of Africa is Atlantis? Do you know I haven't done any of those? Do you know why Johnny Prince Charlie? Hello, Johnny Prince Charlie. Do you know this is the is Atlantis? Do you know I haven't done any of those? Do you know why Johnny Prince Charlie? Hello, Johnny Prince Charlie. Do you know this is the thing? Is I think there are better people doing that broader debunking. Archaeowolf, Liminal TV, or whatever it's called, Liminality TV. They're really good at. I don't touch Graham Hancock. I don't want to even know he exists. I even said as a joke. Someone said, "Have you heard of this Graham Hancock recently?" And I said, "Who?" And you could see they were really annoyed that I hadn't heard of. Of course, I'd heard of him, but I thought it's easier than actually responding. And they went, "Oh, he's trying to get archaeologists to pay attention to his evidence." I was just like, "Oh yeah, it's because no one's ever heard of Graham Hancock with his thousands of books and his constantly being talked about as if he's some lone voice of truth in the wilderness when he's just another grifting arsehole." But my point is, no, I don't do videos debunking these things, and because the problem is it draws. It's not my thing. I don't know enough. It's a lot of effort just to say it's shit, it's rubbish, And actually, I could just do video after video going, Dan McClellan stuff. Let's see it. That's wrong, but I can't be bothered. Life's too short for me. But I think I'm glad other people do that, but I just can't. It's too mentally. It's exhausting, isn't it? There's so many. I have paid attention to conspiracy theories and pseudo-archaeology when it affects my periods and interests, so Viking Age stuff, Anglo-Saxon stuff. I don't ignore it, but my point is I can't deal with all of it because it's just everywhere, global, isn't it? Yes, thank you for the comments on the T-shirt. I'm not catching up with the comments. There's so many great comments. There's over 40 of you here. I didn't realise. I've got to catch up. Yeah, I know. I wouldn't call. Yes, issues about the UK. I'm not going to say anything further about that. No comment. But of course, I recognise the sensitivities with the terminology we use in archaeology, and it's important we address this. But equally, I think we've got to keep away from trying to police everything people say. And I think some people seem to think that's what I'm doing when I'm saying there's a problem with what we call the Viking Age. People think I'm trying to police anyone or there's problems with face paint. No, I'm not. I'm trying to raise awareness and educate people about why they need to pay attention to these issues. I have many good friends in Irish archaeology, both in Northern Ireland and Ireland. It's Ben Swifty Ben. Just trying to get through the questions. There's lots of nice. Hey, it's James here. Hi, James. Yeah, I duetted one of her videos, stitched one of your videos. Thank you very much for, allowing me to stitch it and another adding voice to the Jake and the Jake the Looter stuff. Oh my god! I got wow. What was that? I don't even know what it was. I think someone just sent me a coronavirus. I think that's good. Yeah, thanks for that. I got some kind of animated thing appeared. I appreciate it, whatever the heck it was. Um, I'm sorry if I'm not going to hold your attention because I'm desperately trying to catch up with all the scrolling to see if there are any questions that I immediately need to answer. I'm digging up puns. I've managed to catch up with the puns. There's people. Oh, you're from Skye, are you, Catherine? That's good. I've been to Barra and Skye, but I haven't been to the Uists. Good to see you. What's your view on people learning history at college level remotely? What's my view? I think it's really great. I have a remote distance learning MRS archaeology student, and I think the OU do some distance learning archaeology modules, if not an archaeology degree, within their classics. So yeah, I think yeah, Archaeowolf just yells. Sorry, I'm distracted by that. No, I think distance learning is really good, and TikTok. I don't want to be. Let's not be snobby about it. That you can. I've learned loads on TikTok from other archaeologists, but I don't know anything about some geographical regions and some periods. Like I had recently did an interview for a research seminar series with Ellie. Mackin Roberts, Dr. Ellie Mackin Roberts from King's College London, and I learned so much about ancient Greece from her videos. I learned so much from historical Han. I learned so much from everybody. Archaeowolf. I can't keep up with all the news. I didn't know about the obsidian axe finds from East Africa. And I find out about it from TikTok. And so I'm not snobby about this. I'm learning too. That's why I'm here. I can't keep up with everyone's great videos, but I think it's really important. How do we balance sites of indigeneity spiritual importance from the new woo movement? It's a real tough one, Catherine, because archaeology has spent a lot of time trying to work with indigenous communities, work with respecting alternative worldviews. We have very different conceptions of time, creation, understanding the world, and yet also there's a global nonsense. and the problem is there is overlap between historically rooted indigenous cultural traditions and nonsense through the fact that everything is spread globally, and people are rightly reacting to me when I say it's cultural appropriation, saying cultural appropriation is no such thing, we all should be entitled to steal everyone else's stuff, and I'm going, wow. And I think it's difficult for archaeologists to make these judgment calls of when the conversation is going to be constructive, when the dialogue, who are the legitimate groups and who are just the grifters and the stealers and the weirdos. And I suppose for me it's not so. That's important, but also I think it's important to remember that archaeology created all this problem in the first place. I mean, our discipline has been, and it can be still, the looters, the cultural appropriators, the tomb raiders. So it's a bit rich for me to be the arbiter of those distinctions, because at the end of the day, our internal discipline historically has these divisions too. And I don't make many friends on social media, but I sometimes have to say that while I respect people's stances on things different from mine, some of the things I see being published in scientific peer-reviewed journals come dangerously close to pseudo-archaeology. Or the way that they're pitched to the media, even if the research is solid and good, can be that way inclined. So I think I don't have an easy answer for you, Catherine, about the balance between indigeneity spiritual versus the pseudo-archaeology fringe crazy, because actually it's not just us and them, the professionals, the academics, the wider community. It's also, we have that within the community itself, both kinds, both people who are indigenous archaeologists who are generally rooted in a historical tradition of a particular indigenous group, and the more woo, as you say. How often do you find your research weaponized to support conspiracy theories, says Jane? That's a really great question, Jane. Can I answer that one? My personal research, in terms of my personal research, I have seen it used a couple of times by heathens, actually, Germanic heathens, who have a particular folkish angle. In particular, my master's research, which was on the early medieval reuse of prehistoric monuments, and I've seen my research and Sarah Semple's research being manipulated and used as evidence of what pagan Anglo-Saxons thought about their world, and that somehow that can be captured by ritual practices at those sites. But mostly, I've seen more weaponization of my research by academics misrepresenting my work, manipulating my stance in my publications, even though my publications are there. They're not critiquing my work, they're taking it and misrepresenting it. I've seen more misrepresentation of my work by other academics than I've actually seen by non-academics, I have to confess. So I think a student getting a citation wrong, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about other established academics grossly misrepresenting what I said and using it for leverage to weaponize a particular stance, which is pretty shocking, really. But you know, this is the world we live in, and certain publishers, Palgrave Macmillan, will publish this stuff apparently, even though it's allegedly been through peer review, which it clearly hasn't, or its editors are so grossly incompetent because they don't understand archaeology, because they're in a cognate field of research, medieval literature. And so, you know, that's the kind of problem I face. But yeah, you occasionally get crazies who will cite my blog or cite my research papers. But the problem with morons, both the academics, I think a lot of the problem comes even the academics and the crazies. They don't read. They can't read. They can't even listen to a TikTok for 2 minutes or 1 minute. So they're not really misrepresenting anything I actually said. They're misrepresenting something they imagine I said if I'd said it. And in their head, they think I've said it because they talked to someone else who said that I said that. So they never actually, my research is fine, you know, it's just that people can't read. So, and that's true in academia too. I see that happening. So that's an interesting question. So I hope that's a suitably non-specific response, but I can name names in another context if you like, Jane. No, they can't be trusted to read signs, says Jennifer. Yes, they can't be. Fingerless gloves. Oh, I have my fingerless gloves. I should. Mikey needs my fingerless gloves because apparently Mikey likes my fingerless gloves. So I should put on my fingerless gloves, even though fingerless gloves with a t-shirt, I don't know if that really works. But there you are. I've just fulfilling my fan base. They need it for the next music video. I need to bring out the fingerless gloves. Look very 90s. I don't know. Does it look 90s? I was just thinking of, I don't know what. Anyway, there you are. So they're here now. Okay. Let me see. What do you find most rewarding about my career? I'd like to say sharing my information with new students and new audiences outside the academic world. That's the official answer about what's most rewarding about my career, is sharing what we know and what we don't know and the debates about it with the broader public and with students. I think that has to be the joy, and finding new insights in both new discoveries in the field, but also in terms of rethinking existing research. If you could, let's talk about analysis. Almost catching up, but there's so many comments coming. What's your favourite site you've ever worked on? Anna asked. Hello, Anna. Lovely to see you. My favourite site I've ever worked on. Well, I keep changing my answer to this, depending on, because I keep getting asked in different ways. And I suppose I'm most proud of the working on the Pillar of Elizeg near Llangollen in North Wales, Bronze Age barrow with an early medieval cross shaft still and base still on it. It's a multi-period site of Bronze Age and early medieval, and I've still got to produce the final monograph about that with Professor Nancy Edwards and Dr. Gary Robinson. I've got to get them responding to my emails. No, it's not as simple as that. They've been very busy and I've been very busy. But also I'm also proud of working at Sutton Hoo. I enjoyed working at Sutton Hoo as a student. So actually, before I went to become a student, I was between college and university, I went to excavate at Sutton Hoo with the great Professor Martin Carver. Yes. And yeah, that was cool. See any other questions? I think I've probably got to the point where I should see if I can jump online with anyone. How about some more on the interesting runes on the new runestone? Well, actually, you know what? There's a great Jackson Crawford video with one of the two archaeologists one of the runologists who's involved in interpreting that. So why don't you hop over to watch Jackson's channel, because he's done a whole video with this guy for a whole hour and 10 minutes at all of the runes. And I suspect very much Looney Tunes, they've got much more coming out about that find. I think there's more runic inscriptions they're still trying to decode. But it's an amazing find. I've said all I really can, really. Let's see if there's any other. Questions I can actually answer. Best advice for young lecturers. I'd love to hear your take. Best advice for young lecturers. Right, okay. Best advice for young lecturers is to how to deal with students. Don't let students get away with shit. I used to have, when I was a younger male student, I used to have a lot of trouble from mature male students who wanted to lock horns with me, wanted to sort of test my knowledge. You know, I'll show him who knows more. I've read a book about Roman Britain, or I've read talk about competitive stuff. And I think women get it a lot worse, obviously. So I would say, don't take any shit off students, and don't take any shit off older colleagues like me. You know, just try, no, without, politely but firmly, don't give any shit. Don't take any shit, don't give any shit, whatever the phrase is, you know. Let there be no shit given, no fucks given, no shits taken. Is that yeah, that's the best advice. You know, have a little bit of a hard nose, because it's very easy to let things grind you down if people start to take advantage. Or hi. So I'm just catching up with people saying hello. Oh, is there lots of howdies? How am I feeling about upcoming strike action? Yeah, I said that at the very beginning. Hello, course correct. I basically feel really daunted. I've never striked for 18 days. Colleagues are really shit scared about it. Scared because, you know, the financial hit. We don't want to upset the students. You know, it's enough problems recruiting as it is. The reputational damage. The university is allowing this reputational damage. You know, the drama of just going on a picket line is nerve-wracking. People think, most of the time it's lovely and you just have a chat with people, but you always get somebody angry in some regard. So no, I'm not looking forward to it, but I will be a dinosaur. I'm going to be in dinosaur costume. Shh, no one knows it's me, because they know it's me. I'm the dinosaur, the T-Rex, Solidarity T-Rex on the picket line. So I do a bit of dressing up, and then I do a bit of serious stuff, but it's really, really quite nerve-wracking, actually. Let me see if I have any other questions. St. Patrick's unalived African pygmy in Ireland lived there. Lunar shrooms. Have you seen the woman who tried claiming St. Patrick unalived African pygmies in Ireland who lived there first? No, I haven't seen that, but I'm always crying with tears of pain and joy. It's not implausible. There's a whole thing about dark-skinned people in Ireland that seems to have gone absolutely nonsense. And I just, can I just say no comment for that one? Do you have a favourite archaeological site that you've participated in? I've already answered that one. I just said Sutton Hoo and the Pillar of Elizeg. So thank you, Margaret. But I'll give you a different answer, because it's at least 5 minutes on and no one knows. How about I say that I participated excavating an oppidum in southern France when I was a student at Coron, which is not far from the site of Gergovie, one of the key sites of the Gallic Wars. So I was involved in excavations there, which was very cool. They found a Romano Celtic temple site. Yeah, that was. I was going to say Romano British, Gallo-Roman, Romano Gauls. You know, one of those temple sites there on an Iron Age fortified hilltop site. It's very cool. I enjoyed that as well. Let's see if there's any more questions I can. Troth says, thank you very much for partnering with us for archaeology that screams Norse pagan. I've enjoyed doing that series, and I really think it's important. And that's where I would say, answering the question earlier, Catherine, I think it was, said about when do I want to work with spiritual groups. You know, I've worked in churchyards. I've worked with Christian communities, right? I work with any. I don't have I don't work with people of faith. No, I will work with people of faith. It doesn't have to mean I have to buy into their religious baggage, as long as they respect that I am not, by associating with them, I am not a necessarily adherent to their religious system, and that's fine. And we can find a constructive way of working together, whether it's of mutual benefit. And I think this is because there's so much attention and to misinformation. And I think some Norse pagans think I'm bashing them all the time. That's not my intention. I'm just trying to share some information that is of constructive use and pointing out where problems arise and where extremism occurs. That's not the same thing. So I think the Trump have been really nice to me. They've invited me to do a series of videos, and I think it's going to be mutually beneficial for me to sort of share some fun, short, piece of information. And I think there's a mutual respect there. I don't think there's, and so thank you for allowing me to do that, because I think that's a really constructive thing to do. Did I see the archaeological article on the race of skeleton people? Oh, you mean, is that in the Daily Mash? One of these comedy ones about archaeologists uncover skeleton people. Yeah, but it's not far off from some of the nonsense pseudo-archaeologist spin. So it's funny, but also makes you cry, because it is, it is so frustrating. There's so many good comments. I think maybe I should. Who would like to? Would any of you archaeologists like to come on have a chat? Because I think I've talked enough, really. And Archaeowolf said he'd be willing to come on. But if anyone else would like to come on, that'd be fantastic. I just want to say thank you very much. Finish this formal me talking to camera bit and say thank you very much for all of the support and kind comments, and it's been really wonderful. I love this. Okay, so how do I do this now? If I click on Archaeowolf, then do I invite him? Yeah, if I just invite as guest. Yeah, I'll click that, and the great Archaeowolf from his wolfish den of pseudo-archaeology bashing to join me online, I'm sure, in some fashion. I don't know how this happens. So there's a guest thing comes up, so what happens now? Is that the way it works? How do we do this?
I think so.
Yay!
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hello. Oh, this is different because. Hey, how are you? There you are.
There I
Oh,
am.
hello.
I'm good. How are you?
Hopefully we have Anna here as well. Anna, are you there?
I am. Hello. Can you see me?
I can't see you, but I can hear
Huh.
you.
Weird. Okay. Well, as long as you can hear me, that's all that matters. Also, I almost prefer people not being able to see me because I have some medicine that kind of messed up my face recently. So.
Oh no.
Yeah. It's all right.
I blame the pseudo-archaeology.
Okay. Well, some people can see me, but hello.
I don't know, maybe my settings or something, but I'm trying to look to. This is something I've done in some way. But I invited you to join. It looks like your video is on, and I can see. Yeah, I can. So I don't know. Apologies if it's me.
Who knows?
How are you? When you messaged me, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to be there. So.
Oh, it's lovely for you to be here, and you've been at the forefront of this latest Jake stuff, and well done for all your efforts, because I've been seeing
you.
It comes with the territory of lots of patience and dealing with idiotic comments, doesn't it?
Yeah, and just a rundown for anyone who doesn't know, there's a young man, he's 19 years old, he lives in North Carolina in the States, and he decided that he just wanted to make a living out of looting archaeological sites. And actually, Archaeowolf Morgan actually called him out well over, 2 years ago when he was still in high school?
Christmas of 2020. The 27th of December, 2020. I went back and I found the video. Somebody had tagged me in it, and he had recovered a folding pocket knife from a site. And mind you, this is, the Civil War, so it's been there a while. And he proceeded to drop the whole damn thing into a container of white vinegar to clean the rust off it. Let's ignore the fact that there's brass. There might have been wood or bone handle. So he completely never saw that piece again on any of his social media. which means it probably just completely disintegrated. But yeah, he was pretty clear on telling me that I didn't know what I was talking about, and then blocked me after him and all of his little buddies harassed me for a good long while. And then I didn't hear anything about him until Anna's video came across the thing, because I got tagged in it and I can't respond because I'm blocked. But yeah, now he's in college for however long it's going to take for the dean to have a conversation with him.
Yeah.
Because yeah, what have we done? He's known about in the Carolinas, West Virginia, Georgia, Florida, I think. So
he's all over the place.
6 states, of which 3 or 4 of them have a file on him already, and law enforcement already knows who he is.
Yep.
His museum that he supposedly volunteers at, his school. And what's interesting is that if he was going to get a job in this field, every single person that is that's pointing out the error of his ways are the people he'd be working with.
Yep.
So even if it doesn't come down to what it could come down to, he's not getting a job in this field.
No.
Never.
And I feel the worst, I think, at the moment for his professor, Dane Roberts, who actually was the one who tagged me initially in his video, kind of calling out Jake. He got in contact with his college, and this poor professor was like shocked, because she's his archaeology professor. And
so he's actually doing archaeology at college.
Yeah, go ahead, Morgan.
Yeah, Anna, you were the one that found the class list. But yeah, he's going to a community college that has like 4 anthropology, archaeology classes, 4 anthropology classes, one of which I think is specifically archaeology. And yeah, his professor is like, she's done like mass preservation work and stuff in Greece. She's been doing this for 20-something years, so she's been doing archaeology longer than this kid's been alive. And he has pretty much, with his actions, and I mean, this is the fallout, she's now going to be on the hook. If anything comes down the pike, she's going to be probably called on in some fashion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, poaching artifacts from the waterway is a federal thing.
Yeah.
And they don't mess around with misdemeanors on the federal end of things. It's be straight felony.
Yeah.
So,
and so, Dr. Howard, have you ever had a situation like this where a student of yours has just blatantly disregarded cultural resource laws?
Yeah. Not that someone's reported to me that I've heard about. And I've had a couple of weird incidents, right? Because where I've been on field trips and students have done, or on field work and students have done weird things or revealed. It's a bit sensitive because these are people who might still hear me say this, but one person did pick up something in a churchyard and I had to say, you're going to put that back right now, right? Because lots of stuff bangs around churchyards. Without going into too much details, I hope you get a sense of what I'm talking about. And they said, no, I'm taking it. And I said, in front of the whole guy, I said, no, you're not. We're not doing this. So that was really awkward. That was just beyond, I didn't even see it coming. I thought, why would anyone... And then I have had an incident where a student who is a really good student admitted to me that they collect a certain kind of object that would, not in the same way as a person who has a wall of spines, but not far off. And I just I said, we need to have a conversation about this. And we did have a conversation about it. And but then again, what can I do? I mean, it's kind of an awkward situation, isn't it? Because if they are going on TikTok or going on Twitter or going on something and performing this publicly, then there's something that's one dynamic. If it's somebody who I just confides in me a personal piece of information about what they do in their spare time, beyond actually saying, I really think that's a bad idea. it's very difficult to know how to then take that forward as a construct, as a formal thing if they're not publicly promoting it or doing it, and it's more of just a, oh yeah, well, And the other one I had a number of weird incidents. There's loads of incidents in my career where I've turned up to public talks or I've been in people's private homes and they've said, "Oh, by the way, I've got this," and you go, "What the heck?" and you're in that social setting, and you go,
our existence when it comes to this job is there's always somebody who's like, "Oh, I collect arrowheads too," and they want to show you, and it's like, no.
Yeah. You feel really dirty and dodgy, and I go, I'm Louis in my head. I'm doing that David Mitchell. I'm Louis Theroux. I'm Louis Theroux. I'm not even here. Sort of that kind of. But there have been moments where I have had to sort of say quiet. I said, well, you do realise this is something that shouldn't be happening. But most of the time, I'm too soft, and you end up just going, ha ha ha, ha, where's the nearest exit? Bye. God, my knee. The war wound. That Fawlty Towers moment. The war wound. Sort of to try and find an excuse to get out of the situation. And then you have the sort of pseudo archaeology interactions where I realise I'm really soft because people come up to you, even though I've just done a 45-minute, 50-minute talk about a topic. And they'll come up to me and go, yeah, Graham Hancock. And you go, yeah, pile of crap, yeah. But you can't say, you've got to find a way of going, that's really interesting. And yet somehow nothing to do with what I've just been talking about. It's really hard,
I think we should stop being so nice about it and just flat say it.
I try to. I do say things like, it's nonsense, and but people don't want to. Somehow, people just don't quite get it. I think
my grandfather at Christmas dinner brought it up because he watched them. He watched the new documentary and was like, "This is really interesting." And I had to look at my 91-year-old granddad and go, "Pete, no."
Oh God.
Yeah, it was not fun.
My ex-doctoral student Brian, who's from Maine, he always says that his granddad watches Ancient Aliens, and every time he goes back home, it's like, is it dad? No, it's not his dad. It is his granddad. No, granddad. It's not like that. And even though he knows his grandson did a PhD in archaeology, undergraduate in archaeology, in the States, and then came over, did master's PhD in Chester, he still goes, I watched, series 98, episode 5, where they found, and Brian just has to nod his head and go, no, it's all crap, granddad.
Oh, crap. It was crap when it came out in 1969. And Donikin didn't even make it up himself. He stole it from H.P. Lovecraft.
Oh my God.
And there's another guy who was involved with it in the late 40s. Like, the guy was a fan of H.P. Lovecraft, like his pen pal from France. And after Lovecraft died, this guy kind of fell down into the hole of, well, Lovecraft died, and then something called the Second World War happened in France, and then this guy wrote a book, and I want to say it's something like the rise of the magic eaters or something like that. I might be wrong.
Oh God!
I remember hearing a reading of this on college radio, and it was the trippiest thing. But Donikin actually got sued in the early 90s for plagiarism from the estate of this guy, because I think he was dead by that time. And in order to get away with it, Donikin cited him, like put him in the bibliography as a source, because he had done exactly that. He had plagiarized this guy's work. So
what I want to know is, and I think where the conversation really needs to go, is how do journalists disown Hancock and their ilk? Because if they want to portray themselves as journalists or writers or popular scientists, whatever, and so as a kind of plausible deniability for their, then I think the real onus has to be put on what is the journalistic community doing to disown these kind of, once was a journalist for for a few months, and then was sacked, and then use that as their epithet for the rest of their careers or whatever. I'm not saying particularly Hancock, but a lot of these characters.
Yeah.
I get approached by people calling themselves, a historian and researcher, and you look at their website and it's just conspiracy theory rubbish. It's not just journalists, but these titles. It's like a white man persecuted for his outrageous beliefs. Or something. They're sort of victimhood. They've got the sense of sort of.
I think in respect to like Graham Hancock, people just need to hold him accountable.
Yeah.
In his own, in his own community of journalism, because there's journalists who are very serious about their job, and this guy walks in and goes, "I'm an investigative journalist," like he invented the role, and he starts talking about aliens or mother culture or whatever. And when you have people who are serious about the work they do getting lumped in with him, it's like us getting lumped in with Schliemann. We hate Heinrich Schliemann with a fiery passion, and we don't want to be associated with that. So we promptly explain every single bad thing he did wrong, and we have no problems with doing that. The journalism community needs to do that with Hancock.
I just fear that because he is making so much money for Netflix, for any kind of station or entity, I guess I should say, that like picks up on him and uses him to make money, they're not gonna want to discredit him, right?
No, they're not going to.
Yeah, and that's what sucks.
I had a conversation about a year ago now, almost to the day, with 3 producers from a production company that actually has done. They're the ones responsible for Aztec Gold, and I had to sit down with them because they wanted to work with me. They wanted to do a show and not try to fold me into something they were already working on. They wanted to give me one of my own things. And I said, well, what's the reality for something that's actually real? Like, not crap TV, but let's look at let's look at the stuff that was on the History Channel when I was a kid, that actually was accurate. And I've never seen 3 old men quiet down so quick and try to walk the conversation somewhere else. Well, we could do this. And I was like, the guy brought up conspiracy theories. And I was like, yeah, you know what? How about we do that? As the professional, I will debunk everything and explore why the conspiracy theory exists at all.
Yeah.
And it'll always come down to the point of, people are happier with the conspiracy theory because it cushions the fact that there's something that they don't want to deal with in life.
But it's like it's not only the ability of Western, I don't know these terms. It's not just America, is my point. Of Western, it's not just that they're willing to indulge misinformation amongst some and not others. It's the amount of money people are allowed to make from certain grifting, whether it's particular kinds of religious community that. Or we're happy to forgive, and then the second, I say anything, it's like, oh, I see why you're doing it because you're after the money. You go, oh yeah, all that money I get from what? It's really funny though, isn't it? That double standard that people are really happy to do. You're happy to entertain that.
I can't even. I can't even buy myself a pair of shoes that don't squeak. I'm so bathing in the conspiracy theory, big archaeology money. Meanwhile, Graham Hancock is worth $14 million, and this is a jab at Great Britain, Howard. I am sorry, but
yeah, you're right. He's our fault. We are responsible.
No, it's for how long was archaeological investigations financed by rich old British white guys?
No, that's fine.
Who got to keep stuff after the expedition because they put money down on it. Hancock had all this money, and yet he won't spend a dime on it, proving that he's right.
Hmm.
But he's worked out that actually finding stuff is a waste. Is he's streamlined the imperial legacy to a point where you don't actually have to go and steal stuff from other countries because you just have to you just have
Just
to
make it up.
yeah, just make it up. So in many ways, you could see him as the ultimate Boris Johnson. I mean, sort of equivalent. He got there before Boris did. Other previous prime ministers actually pretended to do the job, whereas Boris just decided, no, I'm not going to even try. So, but that's by analogy. That's what Hancock's done. Sort of just like, oh, I just
I remember one of the first times I ever saw Graham Hancock on a documentary. I remember there was another archaeologist there, and I think they were talking about that big burial mound cairn site in Ireland that has the hole that the sun shines through at a
a Newgrange. Oh,
yeah.
there's Anna. We've got her.
They were talking about Newgrange, and on a certain day the sun shines right through that hole. And the guy who was responding to Graham Hancock's stuff was like, I can go anywhere in my house and punch a hole in the wall to the outside. And at some point during the year, during the day where the sun is out, the sun will shine through that hole at least once. It's not that difficult to do. And it doesn't mean that the aliens remodeled my kitchen.
Yeah. Another thing. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. He then plotted out something. He plotted out Orion, the constellation, with bagel shops in New York. He ignored a whole bunch of them, but he was able to plot out the constellation Orion with bagel shops in New York to prove that what Graham Hancock was saying was a load of hooey, because Hancock ignored a huge number of sites that fell into the same criteria he was rambling on about.
Yeah. Another thing too that I was just talking about with some people in regards to why people look to Graham Hancock for for this bullshit that he puts out. And it's because he's now, of course, got this TV show, and the same reason people are into Ancient Aliens is that, even I, as somebody, for those who don't know, I'm a master's student in archaeology, and I've been in college for almost 7 years now. And I still struggle when I'm reading academic writing to understand what they're trying to say, because they use very, very ridiculously difficult language. I was reading today, for example, I do paleobotanical analysis, so I study ancient plants. And so they're talking about daily use of plants, okay, versus ritual. But instead of saying daily, they say quotidian. Why?
No, that was a word. Cool.
Yeah,
I know.
exactly.
I've just started using that. Don't have a. I like that.
It's a
I thought
fantastic, beautiful
I'm
word.
trying to sound down with the kids and cool, but I've just started using it. Now
No,
you've
you're
just trashed
good.
it.
Oh, I've trashed it.
No,
It's
you're
just,
right. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I know what you mean.
when we have words that are a more simple, simplified way to say it, we should just say it that way. Because if your writing doesn't work for a 14-year-old to understand, then why are you writing it so nuanced? Because when you think about it, in the United States, if you didn't know, the highest average level of education, I believe, is either 8th or 9th grade. That's 14 or 15 years old.
I didn't know
So
that. Doesn't
we need
surprise
to
me.
think better about how we're writing so that everyone can have the accessibility. Otherwise, that's why they turn to Graham Hancock and Ancient Aliens, is because they're speaking in ways that everyone can understand, because they're not writing for the academic community. They're writing for the general public.
There's a great
That's
phrase in a comedy show about which is a sort of a parody of a fly on the wall documentary of a training session, so in business world, where someone critiques the trainer by saying, "Do you when you go to the toilet, do you have an Armitage Shanks defecation interface scenario, or do you just have a shit? The point is, that for the Americans, Armitage Shanks is a UK toilet manufacturer type. So it's just the idea that there are simple ways to say things, but people don't do them, do they? They always have to go to a much more complex. And I think there is I would qualify this by saying there are some framings that need precise wording, and if you introduce why you're talking about this, why you're using this word, how you're using it in a couple of sentences, like I'm going to use the word quotidian because it's about not simply daily routines, but various temporal cycles of common household activities that may not be daily but are commonplace. Or you have it as a footnote or something like that. And then for the rest of the article, you use it that way. I don't mind. But if it's 15 freaking terms in one article, all of which need introduction, footnoting, and as discussed in the article, Chitwood 2024 says, and you're lost. Everyone's lost. And they're going, what was this article about anyway? And then it usually comes back to conclude, I've shown that quotidian interfaces of paleobotanical evidence reveal a interface between blah, 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 blah. And you go, oh, right, okay. So you found some stuff, Yeah, it's really annoying. I agree with you. I agree with you.
Yeah. And somebody said, there's, you can simplify doesn't mean concise. And I get that. But when there's literally a synonym that is a single word. So like I said, obviously, Dr. Howard just explained, quotidian could have different meanings. Quotidian.
We didn't make it. That's a new one.
Yeah, that's a new one. But what I was saying is that when you have a word like quotidian that has the exact synonym of daily, why aren't you using daily? Which, of course, like I said, Dr. Howard explained. But in this case, I'm sure daily would have been fine. So I just feel like sometimes people academics and other writers are using language that is not accessible. And I just don't think that's fair to people who do want to learn, but just unfortunately don't have the resources.
That's true. That's true.
Dalek. Sorry, the most recent comment's really funny.
If only I had done exactly. It'd be much easier. This is true. I've actually volunteered doing an undergraduate lecture in Dalek voice because I can do a good Dalek. I won't try it here, but I can do a good Dalek and just do an hour of it and see if you will read for the next seminar. I think people might get a headache after about half an hour, sort of just like. But anyway, it's good fun. No, but seriously, I think there is a simple, clear language to get the points across, both when teaching. I have to say, this is a bit of a cocky thing to say to two people who may not have done teaching, because you don't need to teach to know how to communicate information. All I can say is that there are some academics who, I say, could you please just do some teaching so that you off your specialism, right? So, it's one thing to teach your area of expertise. Another thing, I'm learning all the time, and I'm still learning how to do TikTok because I realise some things I say just don't make any sense. And I'm happy to go, oh yeah, that was rubbish. Well, I'll try again. Or I use the comments to clarify because I've clearly done a bad job. But, some academics, I just don't think they really do teaching outside of their narrow area. And they probably don't face it. They can reach mid-career, late career, and they've never really had someone go, I'm a really intelligent person, and I didn't understand a word you said. Start again. And I think sometimes we need that. It's not just about teaching, because, you guys, in different ways, you'll be all interacting with non-academics in different roles. It's not about teaching per se, but I'm talking about...
As I work for the government?
But you have to talk to all sorts of I've dealt with some of the best communicators I've known have been governmental archaeologists who have to convince the Ministry of Defence not to blow the holes out of Bronze Age barrows when they're doing battle training or something like that, or have to talk to Welsh hill farmers about not putting their silos on the top of Bronze Age barrows or Iron Age hill forts. So I know that it's not about teaching, but I'm just saying I meet people in the world of academia who clearly don't teach off their expertise, and you can tell that they don't know how to say something, That's just my feeling.
Oh,
So I'm not having to go at any particular group
it's
here.
accurate. I had a couple of professors during my undergrad that, yeah, I didn't get anything because it was like I don't understand why you're saying that, or that they were great professionals. Their writing was amazing, but their ability to teach was crap.
Yeah.
I think if you haven't explained something to a Welsh hill farmer, or had to just discuss something with, or the equivalent, whatever your region may be, then I think that is a trial by fire of trying to sort of talk to a random guy on a tractor, in a tractor, or similar
Oh,
scenario.
I've done.
I'm sure you have.
Wasn't a tractor. It was a timberjack. But yeah, I had to explain to the logger why he had to drive a certain direction. And it was a monitoring project, and I'm sitting there with my stupid little hard hat on, and there's trees that are this big around falling. I'm like, it's gonna save me, not. And I had to explain why he couldn't drive down into the draw. He actually had to go down and around because there's a site right there. And he was arguing the fact that because we said in the mitigation that they could not drive tracked machinery in this area, that had to have tires. And I think that was for the riparian area at the bottom of the draw, because the fish people had something to say too. Because the tires wouldn't crush everything down and tear it up badly compared to tracks. And yeah, he was like, well, the tires aren't doing anything. I'm like, the tires are not what I'm caring about. It's the fact that you're dragging 15 logs like a giant broom.
Oh my gosh.
Drive down the 30 yards to the road and drive down the road. I've seen you guys drive in hairier situations than that. You just don't want to. You just want to get down to the bottom 5 minutes early so you can eat lunch. So.
Oh my God.
So you obviously explained it's because of his quotidian practices were not conducive to the conservation of the heritage, the cultural resources of the this particular declivity.
Yeah.
Or something.
Professionally operating his internally combustion engine powered, hydraulically assisted mid-articulating logging machine. Or conifer harvesting device.
I think it must be something to do with the distributed agency between him, his contraption, and the trees themselves that was clearly not fully synergized with the. I know. No. It's good fun though, isn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah. Because if you actually you actually explain something in language that they understand. Oh, they sit there and they listen to you like they're 8 and you're telling a story about dinosaurs. They're just like, and they pay attention. Because I've been on projects like that where it's like, where you have to translate. You have the person who's higher than you on the food chain, and they're rattling off this stuff, and then you look at them, and then you turn and you look at the construction worker, and you're like, don't do this. You have to be the translator for the science speak.
Doing archaeology in the U.S. can be pretty precarious, and not even just for reasons like you might immediately think. And I don't know if it's the same, in England, but, I did some cultural resource management this past summer, and you get those people who are they just happen to be the landowners, and you have to interact with them because you're doing a survey. I was doing just a historical survey in relation to I think it was new power lines were being put in, but they were being put in underground. And so it was about making sure that they were aware. And this guy comes out, first off, with 2 gigantic German Shepherds. And I think that he probably was packing like a gun, to be honest. And he just didn't take it out because he wanted to, scope it out really quick while we were on his, like, just even in front of his house.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure, Morgan, you've probably had some guns pointed at you.
Oh, I've shot at.
You've been shot at, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It was. I have no doubt that if he wanted to hit me, he would have hit me. But I heard it go whizzing over my head.
Yes, it's with the scope, they'll shoot close enough to get your attention to scare you off their land. I've had colleagues who've had that happen to me as well.
I've had that happen with landowners next to federal land. We were on there's a site that we continuously monitor. It's a site that we've actually established. If we could get rid of all of the sites in the area and make one linear site that's about 2 miles long. But there was like 60% of the site we could not revisit because that land was now private. This was back before the Bureau of Land Management ever got that parcel. It belonged to, I think it belonged to Plum Creek or something. It was a while ago. Anyway, when we got back to the office, there were like 12 phone calls from the landowners in houses we couldn't see. And they had scopes on us the whole time, seeing what we were doing. And we're kicking around rocks. We're not digging. We're not doing anything. I mean, we're stopping and taking pictures of the flowers, really. Because we were doing cultural plant stuff too. But that area is so nuts that our real estate person, when she goes to because there are right of ways that go through this drainage that has been bought up by like the same 12 people, and there are people that try to cut her off and separate her vehicle from the vehicle that she's following to grill her and question her because they're so spooked by it. It's great.
Is that an experience for people in England, Dr. Howard?
No, I mean, you hear gunshots because people are shooting pigeons and all sorts of random things. Maybe they're shooting at me and I just never realised. But no, I mean, I've had a few dodgy incidents but nothing like that. Nothing like that. I mean, youth hanging around in urban areas. I mean, I take my students to all manner of random places, but because if you stride in a confident fashion, you can usually avoid confrontations, I find. So. Oh. But no, I haven't had anything as scary as that. I mean, I've had a few confrontations with colleagues and actually with students in other disciplines. I once had when I was but that's nothing to do with being an archaeologist. Well, it may have been because I was crossing a road and a cyclist had to stop because I didn't see him, and he started swearing. This was on a university campus at a former university, and he started swearing at me and saying I was an effing idiot because I should look where I'm going. And I said, okay. And I just walked on because I was in a rush to get somewhere in emergency because of a medical emergency. And he said, and he threw an extra line up. If you do that again, I'll beat the living whatever out of you. And so I turned around and I went, okay. And I don't know why I did that. I just went, okay, go on, bring it on then. And then he got off his bike, threw it down, and just strode right at me in the middle of the campus, a busy early morning campus with like 100 students around me. I went, oh no, he's really big. So I went as he loomed over me. I went, well, let me just say, if you touch me, not only will I report it to the police, but I'll get thrown off whatever shitty degree you're on. And he just went, you all lectures are all wankers, and he walked off. I went, phew, got out of that one.
Thinkers. I'm sorry, that's been my experience.
But because I shouldn't really answer that.
Just pull out in front of you and not listen to the rules, and they have this idea that the field truck stops at all.
Who's that? Sorry, Morgan. Is that
cyclists?
Cyclists, yeah. Well, I'm a cyclist and a driver and a pedestrian, and I hate cyclists when I'm not cycling. But obviously, I never do anything wrong when I'm cycling.
I don't need a bike right now, so.
But no, that's it. So I've had more aggro with that. I found out who he was later. I found out he was a geography PhD student. But I decided not to do anything about it, and but he was just very angry that I'd stepped out. It must have been annoying for him in a kind of momentary, "Oh God, man, why did you do that?" But I was generally in a rush, and I didn't look, and frankly, life moves on. But he got very angry, so.
Yeah, it happens.
But I've never had that with a farmer or a landowner or anything like that. I occasionally have people who are emphatic about what they've got in their land is X, and they won't be persuaded otherwise. And I tend to be soft about it. Go, yeah, you're definitely Roman. Yeah, just because I don't want to. I don't want to sort of anger. This site goes back thousands of years. Sort of in your face, and you go, yeah, definitely. There's no point arguing. It's their land. They can whatever you want, man. Whatever you like. I don't want. But no guns. No, never had anything. Any gun issues?
Well, you're lucky.
I am. Because it's a very civilized country, unlike you barbarians in the wild. It's a horrible place, Britain as well. But it's not. It has certain advantages. You're more likely to be knifed.
Oh my God.
No.
Sorry, we shouldn't talk about this. We'll probably get banned from TikTok. It's probably.
We'll
be careful about these things.
Get upset.
No, but I seriously, I haven't. I don't think there's been any situation where I felt scared for myself. The other thing, bulls. I once was overconfident. Yeah, I was overconfident with two American visiting people, and I was showing them an archaeological site, and I said, and I did this sort of confident. Don't worry about the cows, they're fine. And I went, as I strode into the field away from the gate towards the Neolithic tomb, I said, they're not cows. My little brain was sort of slowly ticking, they're not cows. They're bullocks, aren't they? And they look really angry, and they're coming at us. I said, "I'll tell you what we'll do," I said confidently. "We'll jump into the fenced area where the Neolithic tomb is, because when we get to look at it closer, what I was really thinking was, shit, we need to get in the fence before they come." And so we were surrounded then for about half an hour while I made up things to tell them about the Neolithic tomb until the bulls dispersed, because I was a bit nervous about what they were going to do if we jumped back out of the fence. So okay, all right. So maybe wildlife is more dangerous than people. Bulls, not rabbi, bulls, not balls.
Anna heard this story the other day when we were in our Discord channel talking about stuff with a bunch of others. But I had a guy that I worked with who decided that he was going to chase a baby moose. He was going to run after and try to slap this baby moose across the hind end. And it's like, do you have any concept of the hell brought down by mom? Because she's watching us. We just can't see her. And sure enough, he took a couple of steps out into the opening, and mom came out of the bushes between him and the baby. So she was closer to him than not. And it was like, I've seen what those things do to the front of a log truck when you piss them off. So let alone what it was going to do to this kid. But yeah, people messing with the livestock or with wild animals. I closed the door on the truck this year and looked through the driver's door out the passenger window, and there's a grizzly bear about 20 feet away looking back at me that I didn't even see until I got out of the truck. And yeah, they're out there.
So we don't even have problems like that in Britain. We've shot everything that might. We've already killed off all of. We've got no wolves. We've got no bears. Well, they've reintroduced wolves somewhere, haven't they? But nothing can harm us. It's all plastic. We've only got a few poisonous snakes. Most of the spiders just look scary, but they're too big or too small to do any harm. It's a very benign environment, Britain. The people may be horrible, but the environment's benign.
I've also heard the food isn't that great, but that might just be
nice. No, I wouldn't like to say. It can be really nice. As long as you don't have English food. It's good Indian restaurants.
Yeah.
That's English in a sense, It's all part of the post-colonial legacy, It's all good.
What is scouse?
What is scouse?
And we have moss. We have lots of moss. Rebel Rabbi says we have lots of moss.
Yeah.
This is not really on topic, but you know,
Oh,
you never know
no.
when.
Rebel asked about metal detecting. I saw earlier.
Oh, so there's actually serious questions coming in. I haven't been paying attention at all.
Let's scroll back.
Well, I
What the
did.
question was? What we thought about?
Metal detectorists.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, can I answer that one? May
Yeah.
I
Go for it.
have a go? And so we have a big metal detecting issue here in the UK because our laws are really lenient. We have, as long as you have landowners' permission, you can metal detect on private land. The problem is there are those, and then there's a voluntary reporting scheme which is funded through the Port of Antiquity scheme, but it's voluntary. You're not obliged to do it, and it's quite hasn't been kept up. The funding hasn't been kept up, so they're really struggling to report and record things, and so there's a lot of metal detectorists who don't follow the permissions. Then there's a lot of detectorists who don't report their finds, and therefore there's a huge problem. Now the opinions amongst archaeologists vary about this. There's a whole spectrum. There's some very vociferous anti-metal detecting archaeologists, both on social media and elsewhere, but there's also archaeologists that see the benefits both sides, and there are those that really emphasize the valuable research that can come from close liaison. And the problem is, in the UK, good relations are revealing, if we can get metal detectorists who report their finds, some amazing stuff is coming up that we'd never find. So I'm not 100% critical of the metal detecting fraternity. However, all I was talking about threats and violence, I have talked to metal detectorists who've tried to advocate for closer liaison with archaeologists who have had to go into hiding because of the sustained level of threats. So whatever we think, there are a whole niche of metal detectorists, amateurs, who believe that archaeologists are demonic and are out to take it almost like if I can get it right, and I don't want to get this wrong, almost like the hardline Second Amendment, the sort of gun law lobby. They treat some British metal detectorists treat their metal detectors like this is our right to roam and to plunder, and you archaeologists are taking those rights away with it. I mean, I'm not saying it's the exact parallel. I'm just using it as a way of introducing.
No, it.
Yeah, but there's some, and it turns ugly quickly. So what I'm saying is, in the metal detecting community, there's a spectrum of relationships with archaeologists. In the archaeological community, there's a spectrum of thoughts, attitudes to metal detectorists. But it's a problem. Not that it's a popular hobby, but it's an out of control hobby. There's no real proper regulation at all. And so I've just done a book called The Public Archaeology Treasure, which you can download, which tries to present the range of views on this from a UK perspective, on the benefits of having metal detectoring as a hobby, but also the damage it has done. So that's my take. And I don't know. I'm in the middle as usual. I'm a wishy-washy in the middle. Oh, they can be good, but they can be a bloody nightmare. They can destroy, ransack sites illegally overnight. I've been on archaeological excavations as a student where we've come back with holes all over the carefully cleaned for weeks surfaces. So I'm sort of, it's a blessing and a curse.
It's regulated on state and federal land. You can't do it. But the language is, of course, you have to read into it. Technically, like BLM land, you can metal detect. You can't dig. You can't carry a shovel. You can walk around with a metal detector and it can beep all day long. You can't do anything about it. So it's like, why? I do know that, like in city parks and stuff, if it's not historic, you can keep it. Beaches are the same way, unless there's designated areas. But usually with if it's state or federal, it's cultural resources, and you cannot collect. Private land, you can, again, with landowner permission. And as we established with Jake, he really doesn't have that. And one of the things we discussed actually was the construction site thing. construction sites do get culturally mitigated, which means there's a chance that he was going on to, well, not a chance, he was, there's some of his videos showing it, that he was going on these sites at night to not get caught, but also because during the day, there's an archaeological monitor making sure the machine doesn't destroy anything. So he was actively...
He knew what he was doing. Yeah, he knew.
Yeah.
And I think there's the problem is the problem with people like Jake, and this problem there's metal detectorists on TikTok I don't interact with, and it's not because I think some of them are doing very responsible things. It's I think the problem with social media presence is that they're amplifying, promoting. Look, as if they're only showing the highlights of weeks crossing fields in perhaps a part of South Devon, and they're showing the highlights, and it gives the impression that they're really finding a lot. And someone saying in the comments here, in Denmark, you need the okay from the landowner, important to find, and you get a reward from the state. So it's all carefully regulated. There's an incentive and a legal requirement, isn't there, in Denmark? So Denmark's a model in some ways for tight state regulation, but encouragement of the hobby. Whereas Sweden, it's totally illegal almost everywhere. And, you look at the contrast of, say, my period, mid-late first millennium CE finds from Denmark in the last 20 years, including all these Valkyrie pendants, which people are so keen to discuss, compared with Sweden, where jack shit has been found because metal detectors aren't operating, or very few are operating. So, you have, really contrasting benefits. If you, whereas in Britain, a lot of people are going on metal detecting holidays from the States, and have been doing for decades now, to just basically ransack whole farms in Norfolk. The farmer gets a cut, he gets a massive rally on his land, and the Roman villa there gets stripped of another layer of its finds. And it's really grotesque. I'm not blaming just US detectors come over. I mean, it happens all over. I mean, we had this TV show that was a real bit of a flop, but I commented on it, this brand new TV show called Digging for Treasure Tonight, which they tried to do it as almost a kind of live in the field. Here we are with some metal detectors finding stuff. And it was, at one level, it was a complete shit show. Another level, there was some really good elements to it. And so I did a moderate defense of it, because they had the Port of Antiquities scheme involved. They had experts in every show identifying the finds. And they did say, for the kids at home, here are the resources. You can't do this without permission. You can't do this, and it's illegal to do it without this. They did actually give the resources, but the glitzy sensationalist digging for treasure tonight, obviously I don't advocate. I thought that was a real misstep. And we have the romanticisation of the detectorists with the Detectorist TV show, which someone just mentioned, Johnny Prince Charlie mentioned here. The Detectorist TV show was such a light, gentle English comedy representation of metal detectorists, like mostly harmless, pals in a field having fun. And it was a lovely show, but also that's really upping the public profile of detectoring in a way that archaeologists don't get, and we're shown as the bad guys, and in that show and others. So I think, much as I love that TV show, in some ways, I think it's helped to romanticize metal detecting in a gentle, quiet way. Not the sensationalist, you will find treasure, but the kind of, it's a bit sad, it's a bit eccentric, it's a bit weird, but we love them out there finding stuff, and it's frustrating to see that not balanced, with an archaeological take.
There was a show in the United States that was on for only a couple episodes, and you might remember what it was, because I can't remember the name of it. But it was essentially metal detecting. It was like the metal detecting version of American Pickers.
Was it the Detectorists? I think someone mentioned it.
Maybe.
I don't know. I don't think I ever watched anything like that. I definitely watched American Pickers when I was younger with my dad, though.
I made the mistake of having an opinion on American Pickers, and I pissed off a lot of people. But I remember that when that metal detector show came out, there was like 1 or 2 episodes that they showed, and then the show disappeared. And that's actually because they were on a site, they were on a farm about 80 miles from my house here, and they actually walked onto the the Grant Coors Historic Monument Ranch, and they were metal detecting on a federal installation, and they got pinched for an ARPA violation, the Archaeological Resource Protection Act. And because they were pretty much caught red-handed with the park ranger and the sheriff, they couldn't put that on the show, obviously. And I think they kind of cut their losses and stopped filming after that. So, but
someone's asked here about what I think about magnet fishing. I've never heard of that. Is it where you just basically stick a big magnet in the watercourse and see what comes up?
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, it has the same range of problems, doesn't it? I imagine different areas, different laws, different.
It does. One of the things that I know that here anyway they find are firearms. People ditching a gun they used in a robbery or something in the creek, and that has a potential not only for crime reasons. I mean, that weapon might be key to a murder investigation, but water does bad things to bullets, and the last thing you need to do is to be reeling this thing in, drop it on the bridge, and it goes off, and the bullet hits somebody walking down the street. So there's that concern. And then if they're finding historic stuff in the waterway, they're not supposed to keep it. They're supposed to report it. But there's nothing against the magnet fishing when you're coming up with modern stuff, bicycles and cars and vending
wedding
machines.
rings.
wedding rings.
Yeah.
Here's a question that maybe. So go on.
Oh, sorry. I had a video sent to me the other day. This is actually back to the metal detecting thing, but it was just somebody I went to like college with who I was just barely associated with. He sends me a video. He's like, "Is this real?" I go and watch it. Morgan, you might have seen it. I don't know if you saw it, Dr. Howard, but there was like somebody in the American Southwest. Don't know exactly where, but it was clearly that kind of region with a lot of, it was drier.
Yeah.
And they were metal detecting. Okay. And all of a sudden they like, first off, they completely destroyed this like earth, like the earth that they were trying to get through, obviously, as you do when you're digging. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I'm not joking. It was like a rock, a boulder. It was a boulder. I shouldn't even call it a rock. It was a boulder. They completely knocked it off of this like little tiny plateau. I don't even know what to call it really other than that. And then inside there was what looked like black and white pottery, like a small pot. I think it might have been Tusayan. I tried to look up the pattern. That's the name that I kept getting when I like described it. And when they pulled it out, it was full of dirt. Okay, so I've many times, like not many times, but multiple times I've seen either pots pulled out / I have found a full pot and they're full of dirt. That dirt oftentimes is the only thing keeping that damn thing together.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's true.
So they pull out this pot and they start taking, first off, like a metal like pick, and they're picking at the inside. It's tiny. It's like this big. Like if my hand is holding it, my hand can hold the whole thing. What do you think they find inside?
Gold.
Yep. Completely planted. So I'm pretty sure they found the pot, but they put the gold, these like gold coins inside, and it had like 2 million likes.
Yeah, of course
it was so fake. Like it was so obvious, obviously to somebody who has somewhat of a trained eye. The dirt was way too loose. Right, immediately after a cutscene, the coins were way too clean.
So my unicorn video.
Yeah.
My skull video. Yeah. Yeah, those videos that have the we found treasure or whatever, it's always a dead giveaway because they're brushing the dirt away, and I'm like, I'm sorry, unless you're in a kid's sandbox, you're not brushing dirt away from anything. You are cutting it out with a trowel and scraping it, and you have to dig it out. So when they're like, oh look, sweep, it's a golden axe. Which, why would you make an axe out of a metal that you can't cut through a phone book with? So,
can I just quickly answer this question? Would
sure.
licensing of metal detectors be helpful in the UK? I think undisputably. I say it's out of control. I mean, there's some six figure numbers of estimated metal detector users in the UK. So a substantial fraction of the UK population own a metal detector. How often they use it? It'd be a much smaller number who regularly do it, but it's out of control. It's not regulated at all. And I would say in the 20 whatever century we're in, 21st century, I'm trying to remember, 21st century, we regulate. You have to have a dog's license, you have to have a car license. I think I think some kind of licensing, basic. It's not going to stop people ransacking sites, but some basic light licensing to create a structure of introduction to the responsibilities with a
Here's your $5 registration for your thing.
Yeah,
$5 times 6 million people. How much money is that?
It'll bring in income
directly into cultural stuff.
Because the other thing is the entitled nature of finders is that somehow it's our responsibility to suddenly do all the work. It's bloody expensive to do even the recording, let alone the analysis, let alone the coroner's inquest that happened to happen when this treasure is found. They act like they've discovered something that they're entitled, and then they complain when the museum doesn't immediately respond to their exciting discovery, as if literally the museum is sitting there with millions of staff just waiting for them to find something, so that the wheels of government and local government, the hordes of money they've got to pour into the analysis of another Roman hoard, it's ridiculous. But that level of entitlement. I am a discoverer. I found this thing. Now you must not only pay me for it, but you must analyze it. I had a guy on the phone 2 days ago, and it was really the weirdest conversation I've ever had. I didn't record the first 2 minutes, but I just turned on my audio recorder, and he said, "Yeah, Howard, yeah, it's Jim here. Now about this pot." And I said, "What? Who?" I said, your physics department put me onto you. I've been talking to Liverpool about this vessel that I've got, and the thing is, it's really important." And I said, "Well, hang on, what vessel?" Well, it's Han Dynasty Chinese bronze vessel. And I said, "Why are you calling me?" And he said, "Well, I'm not going down to London. The British Museum's too far. I'm an old man now." And I go, "What do you mean you're an old man? Why have you got this? What? Why? Who are you?" And this was the way the conversation went. I was quite rude, and he didn't mind. He just kept going on. "Well, the thing is, and I just went. So I just started recording it because I thought it was a hoax. I thought someone was trying to wind me up. That's someone from TikTok. So let's ring up Howard and see how we can wind him up. And I genuinely thought it was that. And so I just recorded it, and he genuinely was. He bought. I never found. I didn't even dare ask how he got this. But whatever it is, he shouldn't have had it. And I just said, "Look, I'll do. Send me an email, and I'll look into it for you." And of course, I haven't received an email.
Yeah, he got it while serving with the Royal Navy on China Station.
Probably. But it's it's bizarre. But my point is, they feel we're entitled. We've got to. It's our job to then sort out their mess. And that they found something, they don't know what it is. We need to identify it. We need to process it, and it's really entitled. It's really entitled. So yeah, I think licensing. Sorry to cut through there, but I think I wanted to address that point. Yeah.
To kind of make a correlation with what you said about the Second Amendment stuff here in the States and some metal detectorists, you can get what's called a curio and relic license from the Department of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms in the United States. And what that means is that you can have essentially a functioning Sherman tank if you want. You can have fully automatic stuff. You can have guns that you don't need to have. You can collect them. But the thing is that if the ATF shows up at your house at 2:30 in the morning and says, "Hey, here's your paperwork. We need to see what you have." If you say, "No, I'm sleeping, come back at 8 a.m., they'll haul you off to jail. You need to, that's part of what you sign up for when you get that license, is there's a regulation that you have to follow. Of course, lots of people just think, "Oh, I get to have anything I want," and that's not the case. But yeah, if you had them registered, and like I said, $5 $5 a year. That's a coffee. You know, drink 1 cup of coffee a day instead of 2. And you can, and that way, I mean, it would probably be, it would, words. It might act as a security measure, because if they show up and say, hey, this site was damaged and this is what we've established was there, what do you got in your collection? Because you're known to be in this area, it might keep people from not reporting their fines or falsely reporting stuff, because if the police show up and say, hey, we've got a complaint about this, and you get caught with it, it might help keep the security of sites better.
I think too, another reason why people won't like report when they find things on their property, I don't know if this is something you've run into, but people think that eminent domain just like immediately will be. So Dr. Howard, are you familiar with eminent domain?
No, so
it's a concept in the United States, and Morgan, I might not be able to explain this very well, where at any point, if the government needs your land, they can essentially take it.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Eminent domain is so like if there's a highway project happening and they're widening the highway, the government is required to offer you, I think, market value or something for the land that you're going to have a right of way on. If you don't, and everybody else around you does, the government will be then like, well, we're not changing the project for you. So they will take it, and then they'll give you a check for something less than what. So it's unfair. But a lot of right-of-way stuff, I mean, that's for like a highway. That's a major paved road. If like with a natural gas or an oil pipeline or power line corridor or stuff or something, if it goes through private land, there's 2 things that go through unless they're burying the line. There's the towers, and then there's the access road. And when all of that, even though it's not private, has to be culturally mitigated in accordance to federal and state cultural laws. And it's just that corridor. And if something is found, say a village site is found, they reroute the thing.
Yeah.
And depending on what you're in, it then trickles down to if there's burials involved, if it's a very important indigenous site, you can't just go dig it up even if it's on your own property.
Yeah.
The government's not going to take it away from you. The tribe is not going to sweep in and steal the 50 meter by 50 meter square. But there are protections in place that keep that site from being just blatantly destroyed.
Yeah.
But yeah, people seem to think that if you put a right of way on your property, or if something is found, we're going to sweep in and take it. And no.
Yeah. That's exactly yeah, and I feel like that has led to a lot of mistrust of archaeologists. Is if we find something, oh, you're gonna get big government on us, and they're gonna steal our land because there's a site here, and it's like that actually isn't how it works. But okay.
No. If the government treats you poorly because you didn't, when in respect to eminent domain, it's because all of these other options were presented and ignored, or presented and not accepted, and it's the out of 100 people, you're the only one that didn't sell a 30-foot section of your driveway. We're gonna so
someone wanted me. I just want to say, someone wanted me to talk about the archaeology of southern Israel. I've done a series of videos because I visited, but I can't really talk with authority about them. I was there as a guest, speaking at a conference and on a study tour, and I've shared some videos. But I'm not going to be able to do sort of you see, this is the thing in my channel. I can't be asked, but I can't be bothered. But I also, I feel that I don't like to do videos outside of my area. I don't like to go, and here is what's happening, because there is a, should we say, a legacy of British people doing that, as we've just been discussing. So I try not
Yeah.
to do that kind of. And here we are in the latest report from Paraguay. You know, it's not my thing. You know, I try not to do that kind of. And it's the British Home Service. You know, I could do this out of I could do a series of 1950s style British archaeology reports. Look, exciting finds from our good friends in the United States. they've come across. You know, I could do that kind of thing, but not.
There you have. We're found down here on the beach.
Yes, exactly, that kind of high-pitched British, you know, BBC. Ah, this is the BBC, you know. Yeah, I could do that, but no. I try not to. I try not to. I always worry about whether I'm pushing it too far into territory outside of my knowledge base. But you know, I get called out on things. I've got things wrong, and I get things that don't agree with everybody. But I'm not here to necessarily agree with everyone on everything. But there's my recent video on what we even named these islands tests. There's some very strong views on things like that. And they're never going to go away. Including, I didn't even know, I must admit, I've been in this field for 20 years. I didn't even realise that the conference called Iona was actually an acronym for Islands of the North Atlantic. And once I worked that out, I didn't even realise that meant these islands. I thought they were talking about Faroes and Iceland. I didn't realise that was one of these modern, supposedly neutral terms for Britain and Ireland and associated archipelago. But Islands of the North Atlantic. What a load of... Anyway, I've done the videos about that, but I have views on these matters. But I think sometimes they're so. You know, I don't think anyone knows where you're talking about. If I said that to my students, or I've said that on a TikTok, I said, well, new news from the islands of the North Atlantic. I think people are going, Howard's been to Iceland or Greenland.
I would be confused.
Yeah. Well, apparently, I should be. I've been told off for not knowing.
I think that's another thing that we all have to deal with in this field is how many people assume that we just, if it's archaeological, we absolutely know everything about it.
Yeah.
And I just have to ask, how are we supposed to know about something that we just dug out of the ground? It's like, you didn't know it was there. I'm like, neither did you, neither did anybody else, you know, short of the person who dropped it. 12,000.
Yeah.
You know? That in the field always changes because change happens. You know.
Yeah, I can't keep up with stuff. So that's why I say I've learned so much on being on TikTok, because I can't keep up with the latest discoveries in all these different fields.
Yeah.
And I suppose my only frustration is that some of the latest discovery videos leave me none the wiser, because that's the nature of the news reports, isn't it? And that's the nature of the way immediate new discovery, archaeologists find stuff. And you go, okay. But I mean, that's not anyone's fault. I'm just saying that's the dynamic of new discoveries.
That is. But then no one expects them to read the rest of it.
Yeah. So like I deliberately, like with the Harpole burial that I did a few videos about, I deliberately didn't talk about the processional cross that they've got an X-ray of, which is the find from that grave. And I mentioned it briefly, but I mean, because it's still an X-ray and they haven't conserved it, but I think that is going to be literally a unique object from a burial context. We haven't had one from a funerary context, a full freaking processional cross of gold and silver. Well, I think it's silver and maybe gold. You know, they've got the X-ray in the block, and but I could have done a video about that, but I've held back because I think that's just too special, and we don't know enough about it, and it would be just a video going, look, exciting stuff. You know, so you know,
Wait for it to come out.
Yeah, just try to hold back on some of this stuff, but you know, but look, I'm absolutely shattered, and I've got to get up in the morning for work. So if you much as I've enjoyed this, I'm going to have to bow out now, I'm afraid. But, I mean, I don't know if you, but it's been my first in a long time with the great Archaeowolf, the first of hopefully others with Anna. Lovely to see you. And thank you so much for sharing. And it's clearly created a good dynamic with lots of questions and comments. And you know, but yeah, let's do this again sometime, folks.
Absolutely.
And I will get onto Discord. I'm going to try and work out with my Luddite techno knowledge. I'll work out how to do Discord and perhaps join you on there as well, because I know you're on that side of things.
There's another creator before you take off. There's another creator on TikTok. I don't know if you follow Forever NPC.
Yes, yeah. Of course. Prehistoric. What the? Yeah.
Yeah. He started a server on Discord called the Forever Museum, and he went out and he gathered all sorts of professionals in all of these fields to essentially be lecturers in this thing. You know, do an hour talk for a bunch of people on Discord once every 2 months. And
that's fun.
There's also, you know, the provision for if they want to tip you, they can. TikTok doesn't get a chunk. But I'll send you the link.
Yes.
That was the link that I sent the other day to the chat, Anna. But it's really cool so far. I mean, they've had one of the people on there is microbiologist who's been working with like COVID stuff.
Wow, that's really good.
Has done lectures on there. A bunch of paleontology people, voice actors. You know, it's pretty cool. It's pretty
fantastic.
Cool.
Well, thank you for the recommendation. It's another thing to waste my time online. It's good. It's good. But I better go. But thank you very much. Oh, hello, Ellie. I saw you were on here earlier, Ellie. So lovely to see you there as well. And can I also say thank you to the Rebel Rabbi for moderating us through this 2 hours. I'm sure that she's dispatched many a would-be a distraction in the comments. But hello, Ellie, and hello, other people I'd love to talk to at some other point. And maybe I should be on lives more. I don't know if these things are any use to people, but they seem to be creating a nice dynamic. So I just need to sleep sometimes.
Sleep? What is this? Sleep.
I don't know. It happened before TikTok. I used to have some of it. Now I have none of it. But no. It's all good. It's all good.
That's understandable.
But another time we shall catch up, guys. Lovely to see you.